A leafy green, cultivated in the lowland jungles of Mesoamerica for over 1,000 years, contains more protein per gram than cooked quinoa. It produces harvestable leaves year-round. It tolerates drought, poor soil, and the kind of heat that wilts spinach within hours. It fed the civilization that built pyramids in the jungle, that tracked the movements of Venus, that developed one of the few independent writing systems in human history. When that civilization fractured, the leaf remained, growing in courtyards, along roadsides, in the gardens of people who remembered what outsiders never learned. Today, it is virtually unknown beyond the region where it originated. Not because it failed, because the knowledge of how to use it safely never traveled with the plant. There is a leaf that does not behave like other leaves. Most leafy greens are nutritionally modest. They offer fiber, water, some vitamins, trace minerals. They are valued for what they do not contain, calories, fat, density, rather than for what they provide. A salad is something you eat alongside the meal. It is not the meal itself. This leaf is different. Gram for gram, when cooked and prepared for eating, it contains more protein than quinoa. It provides more calcium than milk by weight. Its iron content exceeds that of spinach. It delivers vitamin A in concentrations that rival carrots, vitamin C in amounts that approach citrus. It is not a supplement to a diet. In the regions where it was cultivated for centuries, it was a foundation of the diet, a perennial source of dense nutrition that could be harvested week after week, month after month, for years from the same plant. And yet outside of southern Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize, almost no one has heard of it. This is not because the leaf is difficult to grow. It thrives in conditions that would stress or kill most vegetables. It is not because the leaf tastes unpleasant. Cooked, it resembles spinach, mild, adaptable, willing to absorb the flavors of whatever dish it joins. It is not because the plant went extinct, or became rare, or failed to reproduce. The leaf was never exported because it carries a secret. And the secret made it dangerous to anyone who did not already know. The people who first cultivated this shrub left records in stone and plaster. In the lowland jungles of what is now Guatemala and southern Mexico, the Maya civilization flourished for over 2,000 years. They built cities of limestone and stucco. They developed a calendar of extraordinary precision. They tracked astronomical cycles that would not be matched in Europe for centuries. And they fed their cities, populations of tens of thousands, in environments that offered no large domesticated animals, no wheat, no rice, through agricultural systems adapted to the jungle. The milpa was the foundation, a polyculture of maize, beans, and squash that provided carbohydrates, protein, and vitamins in complementary balance. But the milpa was seasonal. It required clearing, planting, tending, harvesting. Between harvests, between clearings, during the dry months when stored maize ran low, the Maya turned to other sources. This shrub was one of them. It grew in household gardens, in courtyards, along the edges of fields. It required no annual replanting. Once established, it produced leaves continuously, through dry seasons, through wet seasons, through years and decades. A single plant could reach the height of a person and spread wide enough to provide regular harvests for a family. The leaves were picked, cooked, and eaten as a vegetable, providing the protein and minerals that maize alone could not supply. Archaeological evidence suggests the Maya understood its importance. Botanical remains recovered from ancient sites confirm its presence in household contexts. Colonial-era documents, written by Spanish priests attempting to catalogue the foods of the conquered peoples, mention a cultivated shrub with edible leaves that the local population prepared carefully before eating. The preparation was essential. The priests noted it. The Maya had always known it. The leaf, eaten raw, was toxic. But the Maya did not eat it raw. They had developed, over centuries or millennia, a processing method that rendered the leaf safe. The knowledge was not written down. The Maya had writing, but it was used for ritual and royal purposes, not for cooking instructions. The knowledge was embedded in practice, transmitted from parent to child, from grandmother to granddaughter, in kitchens and gardens across the lowland jungle. Boil the leaves, boil them thoroughly, discard the water. What remains is safe. This was not mysterious to the people who grew up with the shrub. It was obvious as the fact that maize must be cooked, that beans must be soaked, that certain mushrooms must be avoided. Every food culture carries knowledge about what can be eaten and how. The Maya carried this knowledge too. And then the Spanish arrived. The conquest of Mesoamerica was not merely military, it was agricultural. The Spanish brought their own crops: wheat, barley, sugarcane, citrus. They brought cattle and pigs, animals unknown in the Americas, which required pasture and transformed landscapes. They brought a preference for foods that resembled the foods of home and a suspicion of foods that did not. The milpa survived. Maize was too fundamental, too productive, too deeply embedded in local food systems to replace. Beans continued. Squash continued. The staples of Mesoamerican agriculture persisted because they could not be easily displaced. But the lesser crops, the garden vegetables, the dooryard plants, the species cultivated on small scales in household plots, these were more vulnerable. They were not exported. They were not catalogued in agricultural manuals. They were not bred, improved, or promoted by colonial administrators interested in producing commodities for European markets. The shrub with the toxic leaves was particularly vulnerable. Its toxicity was not a problem for populations that knew how to prepare it, but it was a barrier to anyone unfamiliar with the plant. A Spanish colonist seeing a leafy green growing in a Maya garden might taste it raw and become violently ill. The natural conclusion was that the plant was poisonous, that the locals who ate it were reckless or ignorant, that the shrub had no place in a rational agricultural system. The processing knowledge did not transfer. It was not written in languages the Spanish could read. It was not taught in institutions the Spanish would respect. It lived in Maya households, passed between generations through demonstration and practice, and it stayed there. As colonial society reorganized around Spanish preferences and export crops, the shrub retreated. It did not disappear. It still grew in Maya gardens, still fed Maya families, still provided protein and calcium and iron to communities that had never stopped using it. But it ceased to expand. It was not adopted by colonial kitchens. It was not carried to other Spanish territories. It was not introduced to Europe, where the climate would have prevented its survival anyway. The shrub required understanding to be useful, and understanding was precisely what the colonial system failed to transmit. There were other barriers too. The plant reproduces poorly by seed. Most cultivated varieties set fruit only rarely, and the seeds that form are often sterile or unreliable. For millennia, the Maya had propagated it by cuttings, snipping a branch, planting it in soil, waiting for it to root. This method works perfectly well within a community, within a region, within a culture that knows how to do it. It does not work for long-distance transport. A cutting dries out, it dies. It cannot wait in a ship's hold for months while crossing an ocean. Seeds can travel, cuttings cannot. And so the shrub stayed where it was. By the 20th century, even in the regions where it had originated, knowledge of the shrub was becoming localized. Urban populations in Mexico City or Guatemala City bought their vegetables from markets stocked with crops that fit modern supply chains: tomatoes, onions, peppers, cabbage. The shrub did not appear in supermarkets. It could not be eaten raw, which meant it could not be sold as a salad green. It required specific preparation, which meant it came with liability that commercial food systems prefer to avoid. In rural areas, in Maya communities, in the small towns of the Yucatan and the Guatemalan highlands, the shrub persisted. Grandmothers still grew it. Families still harvested it. The leaves still went into soups and stews and tamales. Boiled first, always boiled, the way they had always been prepared. But the shrub had become invisible to the wider world. A regional curiosity, a relic of another time. In the late 20th century, researchers began measuring what Maya cooks had known for centuries. The protein content of the leaves, when analyzed in laboratories, proved exceptional for a leafy vegetable. Depending on the variety and growing conditions, the leaves contained 5 to 7 grams of protein per 100 grams of fresh weight, roughly twice the concentration found in spinach, and higher than cooked quinoa when compared gram for gram. For a plant that required no annual replanting, that could be harvested year-round, that asked almost nothing of the soil, this was remarkable. The calcium content was similarly striking. The iron content exceeded most common vegetables. Vitamin A, in the form of beta-carotene, was abundant. Vitamin C levels, though reduced by the cooking process, remained meaningful. The leaves provided B vitamins in useful quantities. In a single vegetable, repeatedly harvestable, grew a nutritional profile that matched or exceeded the combined benefits of several temperate crops. The toxicity, once a barrier to understanding, was clarified. The leaves contain cyanogenic glycosides, the same class of compounds found in cassava, in bitter almonds, in the seeds of apples and apricots. When the leaf tissue is damaged, enzymes convert these compounds into hydrogen cyanide. Eating the raw leaves can cause poisoning. Eating large quantities can be fatal, but heat destroys the enzymes. Boiling the leaves for 15 to 20 minutes in water that is then discarded reduces cyanide to negligible levels. The cooked leaves are entirely safe as the cassava that feeds 800 million people daily, as safe as any food that requires proper preparation. The Maya had known this. They had encoded the knowledge in practice, not in text. The laboratories merely confirmed what the kitchens had always understood. The plant's agricultural characteristics proved equally impressive. It tolerates drought that would wilt lettuce or spinach. It grows in poor, thin, acidic soils without fertilization. It handles heat that would bolt temperate greens within days. Once established, it becomes perennial, a shrub that produces for years, even decades, requiring only occasional pruning and regular harvest. A single plant can yield 5 to 10 kilograms of edible leaves per year. A small garden plot, planted with several shrubs, can provide a household with leafy greens continuously. The leaves regrow after harvest, week after week, without replanting, without additional inputs, without the annual cycle of soil preparation and seeding that defines most vegetable production. For regions facing food insecurity, for communities in tropical climates where poor soil and unreliable rainfall make conventional agriculture difficult, this combination of traits is not merely useful, it is transformative. The shrub does not require irrigation, it does not require pesticides, few pests bother it. It does not require the infrastructure of modern vegetable farming. It requires only a cutting to start, soil to grow in, and the knowledge that the leaves must be cooked before eating. That knowledge, once a barrier, is simple to transmit. Boil the leaves, discard the water. What remains is one of the most nutritious vegetables in the world. The plant is called chaya. In the Yucatan Peninsula, in Guatemala, in Belize, and parts of Honduras, it is still grown in household gardens and along roadsides. Locals call it tree spinach, or sometimes the Maya spinach. In markets where it appears, vendors sell bundles of the large palmate leaves. Dark green, slightly glossy, each one the size of an outstretched hand. The shrub grows 2 to 3 meters tall when mature, with thick stems and branches that root easily when cut and planted. The leaves emerge continuously from growing tips, ready for harvest as soon as they reach full size. A single plant, once established, can produce for decades with minimal care. For those who wish to grow it, the requirements are specific but not demanding. It needs warmth, consistent temperatures above 15 degrees Celsius with no frost. It prefers full sun but tolerates partial shade. It grows in clay, sand, or loam, in fertile soil or exhausted soil, in conditions that would stress most vegetables to the point of failure. Propagation is done by cuttings, a section of stem 30 to 40 centimeters long, planted in soil and kept watered until roots develop. The shrub does not grow true from seed. It has been propagated by cuttings for so long, across so many generations, that seed production has become unreliable. This is how the Maya spread it, cutting by cutting, garden by garden, village by village. Preparation remains what it always was. The leaves must be cooked. Boiling for 15 to 20 minutes is traditional and effective. The cooking water should be discarded. What remains can be added to soups, stews, scrambled eggs, or tortilla dough. The flavor is mild, similar to spinach, a background vegetable that carries other flavors willingly. The shrubs still grow in the courtyards of Maya homes. They still line the paths in villages where the old knowledge was never forgotten. They still provide protein, calcium, iron, and vitamins to families who harvest them week after week, as their ancestors did, as their grandchildren will. And now, slowly, the knowledge is beginning to travel. In tropical regions outside Mesoamerica, in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in the Caribbean, small-scale growers are beginning to plant chaya. Agricultural programs focused on food security are beginning to recommend it. The internet carries cultivation guides and preparation instructions to anyone curious enough to search. The shrub did not need to be rediscovered. It was never lost. It was simply overlooked by systems that did not know how to process it, did not know how to transport it, did not know that the toxicity was a problem with a simple solution. The Maya always knew, and the chaya is still growing.